This is what you want. Okay. This is how we're going. Good morning, Reptilians. Welcome and welcome back to the channel. I'm Elle, this is Zaz, and this is Elle's Reptiles. This week we are doing a video that I get questions about a lot, and that is basically, you just got a new bearded dragon. What are all the things you need to buy for that bearded dragon? I did a whole series that was very similar to this a year or two ago now, called The Cost of a Bearded Dragon, The Cost of a Leopard Gecko, The Cost of Animals, where I basically listed things that you need for them, how much that costs, how much you could expect to invest in a bearded dragon. But not everyone lives where I live, and a lot of people just want a list of what to buy. So that is what we are doing today. Before we get started, this video is sponsored by iHeartGecko, so make sure to stay until the end of the video to find out all about this awesome company. Let's get started. The first thing when you get a bearded dragon that you need is a tank. The type of tank greatly depends on what kind of tank you want. You can do glass tanks, you can do PVC tanks, wooden tanks, you could do a DIY tank out of old furniture. It completely depends on you and what you want for your bearded dragon. The important things about the tank though is that number one, it has ventilation. The other thing is that it's super important to make sure that the tank is appropriately sized. So for a long time, a 40-gallon long or 50-gallon tank was considered to be a good size for an adult. That's no longer the case. For an adult bearded dragon, I would say at very least you need it to be a 4-foot long tank and about 2 foot deep. So if you get your bearded dragon as a baby, you have a couple different options. So you can either start small by starting them off in a 20-gallon long, then moving to a 40-gallon breeder, and then to a 4-foot long tank or more. 6 foot long is fantastic, 5 foot long, whatever you want to do there. But moving them to a bigger tank as they grow. Or you also have the option of just starting them off in the big tank. If you do this and you notice that your bearded dragon is a little skittish, they're not comfortable in that big tank, you can put some sort of divider up in the tank just to kind of close it off so they feel like it's a smaller tank. You can make sure that there is a background or black poster board, something around 3 walls of the tank so they can feel more closed in. You can add more stuff to the tank to make them feel more closed in, add more hiding spaces. But if possible, I always suggest getting a front opening tank just because bearded dragons have a parietal eye right here that senses shadows. So in the wild, if a bird or a predator is coming in from above, they see that shadow, they know to run and hide or stay still or whatever they need to do. So if you're constantly reaching down at them and triggering that, then they are going to be stressed out. And if your lights are on top, a front opening tank is going to prevent you from constantly moving it and shortening the lifespan of your lights. So front opening tank is always better if you can go that route. And since we're talking about lights, let's talk about lights. I have an entire video all about bearded dragon lighting that I will leave here if you need it for more specifics on the different types of lights. But the very basics, you are going to need at least 2 lights on that tank. A basking heat bulb and a UVB bulb. For the heat bulb, I get a lot of questions about what size wattage do I need. That's not a question I can answer because it 100% depends on what type of tank you have, how tall your tank is, what the temperature in your house is, how far the basking spot is from the heat source. For this, I always suggest going bigger, so 100 watt, 150 watt, but putting it into a dome with a dimmer switch, so that way you can just adjust it as you need to. For the UVB light, this needs to be a linear tube light. You ideally want this light to span the entirety of the top of the tank, but at least 3/4 of the tank is going to be fantastic too. And for this, you want to go with either the Reptisun 10.0, the Reptisun 10.0 HO high output, the Arcadia 12%, or the Arcadia 14%, depending on how your tank is set up, where that light is, if it's on top of the tank or on the inside of the tank. But those are the 2 brands that you want to stick with for your bearded dragon. If you're going to mount that light into the tank, that's something else added to your shopping list. You can do that with industrial strength Velcro. I have metal brackets in my tank because my tank is an old jewelry case and there were screw holes in the top of the thing. So my metal brackets aren't actually brackets. They're just pieces of heavy metal that were bent to just fit around the light, and they're just screwed directly into the tank. Just make sure if it's in the tank it is secure and that they can't get up inside of it. And you could also potentially have supplemental heat sources on that tank as well. So supplemental heat sources are going to be used if your bearded dragon is kept in a cold place like a basement, or it just is colder like if it's winter. And for that you can use things like ceramic heat emitters. Deep heat projectors are fantastic, or you can also do heat pads. with the heat pad, it has to be on a thermostat. Make sure it's on a thermostat. Please don't burn your bearded dragon. And for the ceramic heat emitters / deep heat projectors, make sure that it's on a thermostat or a rheostat, a dome with a dimmer switch, something so that you can control it to make sure that your bearded dragon isn't going to overheat. Now let's move on to what goes inside of your tank. So let's start right off with substrate, one of the most controversial things in bearded dragon care history. But you do have multiple options. The one that I have used the longest is ceramic tile. Ceramic tile is very inexpensive, very durable. It is very easy to clean, but it doesn't really provide that much enrichment. Bioactive obviously is one of my favorite choices for them because it's going to provide a lot of enrichment. It's going to provide areas for them to dig and a texture that isn't just flat. Bioactive mixtures are going to consist of things like sand, not calcium sand, topsoil, excavator clay, all mixed together to make a nice, hardy, and safe substrate for your bearded dragon. You can also do things like non-adhesive shelf liner. Some people also do paper towels. Paper towels are especially good if you just got your bearded dragon. That way you can quarantine them, you can keep an eye on them, you can keep an eye on stools, make sure they're healthy, all that stuff. It's also really good for sick bearded dragons. Super easy to clean up. You just take them out, throw them away, and put new ones down. Sand mats are an option. With sand mats, they are almost impossible to clean. So if you go with sand mats, you're going to be throwing them away and buying new ones very, very often to prevent parasites. And because it's sold at all the pet stores, it needs to be brought up. Reptile carpet. Reptile carpet also isn't the best because their waste can get down into the fibers of the carpet and they harbor parasites. The fibers can snag their nails, it can break their nails, or it can pull their nails completely off and cause injuries. And again, calci sand, you just want to avoid calcium sand. Where are you going? Where are you going? What do you see? Is it this? You want me to open this window? You need the sun. Next, we have food and water dishes. Your bearded dragon will need probably 2 food dishes and potentially a water dish. With the food dishes, every day your bearded dragon's going to get a salad, so they're going to need a salad bowl. And I like to feed Zaz bugs in a big porcelain dog dish. That way they can't escape into her tank, which could stress her out. You also potentially need a water bowl for your bearded dragon. This one is another one that's highly debated. If your bearded dragon drinks out of a water bowl and it does not affect your humidity, it is okay to provide them a water bowl. Bearded dragons get most of their water from the foods that they eat, from giving them baths. A lot of them will drink water out of the bath, or simply by dropping water onto their nose using a spray bottle or a dropper. Bearded dragons can't see standing water anyway, so most won't drink out of a water dish anyway. But if yours uses it and it hasn't affected your humidity, then it's okay. Use a water dish. This is how we're gonna sit. This is what you want. Okay. Next up is enrichment. Enrichment is very important for bearded dragons. It is very important for all animals. Enrichment is simply something to do. They need places to climb, leaves, real or fake leaves to climb around in, places to explore. They just need things to do, things to look at, things to see. Bearded dragons will get bored in their tank. Please don't put your bearded dragon in an empty box with lights on top. They also need places to hide, just like any reptile. Sometimes they get scared, sometimes they want to get away, or sometimes they just want to get out of the heat and out of the sunlight. So a hide is very important for these guys. And of course, they are going to need a basking area. Basking areas need to be flat and able to hold heat. So awesome things to use for basking areas are going to be pieces of tile or flat pieces of driftwood, store-bought hides with flat tops, homemade hides with flat tops. Lots of different options there for basking areas. Just make sure that the temperature of that surface is appropriate. On to supplements. Supplements are the powders that you are going to put on their foods. The main supplements are going to be a calcium supplement and a multivitamin. For the multivitamin supplement, there are a lot of different options out there. I've personally been using this one a lot. It was sent to me not that long ago, and my animals love this. This is not sponsored, by the way. My animals just love this. I also use Herptivite. I like to change up the vitamin supplement that I'm using just to ensure that my animal is getting the adequate and correct vitamins. But there's a lot of different options out there. As for calcium, same there. There's a lot of different options out there. I like to switch up the calcium that I'm using. So I will go back and forth between using a calcium with D3 and a calcium without D3. I will leave a supplement video explaining the differences there that I did a while back if you need that. Just whatever you do, make sure you are giving them those supplements. Another thing that is important to use is either bottled water or an anti-chlorinator for tap water. And just a couple optional supplements. Bee pollen is super helpful if you have a picky bearded dragon that does not want to eat their salads. Lots of bearded dragons really like bee pollen, so sprinkling a little bit of that on top of their salads can get them to actually want to eat it. And probiotics. Probiotic powder can also be super, super helpful if your bearded dragon isn't going to the bathroom as frequently as they should, or the consistency isn't what it should be. Probiotics, just like humans taking probiotics, is going to help their gut health. Speaking of useful items, let's talk about useful items. Number one is less of a useful item, and it is more of a necessity, and that is a temperature gun. Using a wall thermometer above your bearded dragon's hotspot is not sufficient to tell the temperature of the hotspot. That wall thermometer can show up to 40 degrees less than the actual basking spot is. That means your basking spot's really hot and it becomes dangerous for your bearded dragon. A temperature gun is going to tell you the temperature of that area where they are laying, and that is super, super important. But you will also need a thermometer / hygrometer in that tank, and potentially two of them, one on the hot side, one on the cold side, just to be able to make sure that the ambient temperature is good and that the humidity in that tank is good. A solar meter is also very helpful in making sure that your bearded dragon's UVB light is sufficiently putting out UVB light. UVB lights put out less and less of that UV radiation as time goes on. Reptisun needs to be replaced every 6 months. Arcadia needs to be replaced every year. If you have a lot of UV lights in your house, that might get very confusing, and having a solar meter is just the best way to go around and make sure that all the lights are still working as they should. These are very expensive though. So if you cannot get a solar meter, that is perfectly understandable. Just make sure that you are replacing those lights as they should be replaced. A timer switch, it just makes your life easier. Bearded dragons need 12 hours of daytime, 12 hours of nighttime every day. Timer switch just makes that a lot easier instead of having to go and turn those switches on, trying to remember to turn them on, especially if you're going to work or school and those lights need to come on after you're already gone. Timer switches are just going to make that a whole lot easier. Just one more thing that you don't have to worry about. They make life a whole lot easier. Like I mentioned before, getting these guys water can be as simple as using a spray bottle or a dropper and dropping it on the tips of their noses. And the last thing I have on my list is a scale. A scale is very important, especially if you have a baby or just monitoring to make sure your bearded dragon isn't sick. It's just going to monitor to make sure that they're growing appropriately and that they're not losing weight if you think that they're sick. Fantastic for peace of mind, fantastic for monitoring the health of your bearded dragon. As I'm editing this, I realized that I completely forgot about cleaning supplies, so we'll make this super quick. You need supplies to clean your tank. I use these things. They disinfect parasites, but you can use any of the array of cleaning supplies out there. Just make sure that you have something to clean that tank with, because you will be cleaning that tank once a month and every time your animal uses the bathroom in that tank. And as an optional cleaning supply, many companies now make bearded dragon soap as well, so if your bearded dragon tends to run through their own poop, this may be something that you want to look into to add to your shopping list as well. But that is it. That is all that I have for this video. I probably forgot things because I always forget things. So make sure to let me know in the comments below super helpful things that you have for your bearded dragon. You might help someone else out. As I said at the beginning of this video is sponsored by iHeartGeckos. iHeartGeckos is an awesome company that makes conversion kits for your tanks. These kits are super cool because they allow you to take tanks and turn them into front opening tanks with amazing ventilation at a very affordable price, and they are super high quality. I've been using their products for literal years and I have yet to be unimpressed by them. Their products are absolutely awesome for many different types of arboreal reptiles and amphibians and whatever else that you can think of that would be awesome in that tank. Make sure if you do order from this company, you leave Elle's Reptiles in the How Did You Hear About Us box, so that way they know that you guys are coming from here. Thank you so much to our geckos for continuing to sponsor these videos. As always, if you have not already, please feel free to follow me on my other socials and like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications every single time I put out a new video, which is every Sunday and some Wednesdays. This week's Instagram shoutout is for No Limit Morphs for following me on Instagram and going through and liking a whole bunch of my stuff. And this week's subscriber shoutout is here. Thank you guys both so much for the support and comments and likes and follows and all of that jazz. You are the bee's knees. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. Is that better? Nope. Here we go. That's good. That's good. Not in my hair. Not in my hair. Ah! The next thing, actually, ventilation doesn't matter as long as long. The other thing, to a 40-gallon breeder, and then to a 48-foot, and then to a 4. Or you're not going back there, guys. No. The big thing with this, the big thing with these UVB, and for this, you want to go with either the Reptisun 10.0, the Reptisun 10, and for this, you want to go with either the Reptisun 10.0, the Reptisun 10.0 HO high output. For those of, if you are going to mount that tank, if you're going to mount that light, many different options there. Do you need to poop? Is that what's happening? Here's one less thing that you have to, one less thing that you don't have, it's just another thing that you don't. You ready to go back in your tank? You done with me? Yeah.